We have for our topic today, we're going to talk about college admissions essay writing. And before we actually get started in talking about some tips and suggestions, we wanted to make sure you all think about these three questions kind of in the beginning and then as we go throughout, because at the end, we are going to try to have a brainstorming session. Another couple key points before I do introductions is if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can use the chat feature and those questions will go to Mrs. McQueen or Mrs. Vanderhoff, and they'll read those out, and then we'll try to answer them as best we can throughout the presentation, and then also at the end, we'll have a chance for some question and answers. So, as we get started, our outline for today is we're going to talk about the role of the college admissions essay. What is its purpose? I'm going to go over 9 tips that I created from my own experience and also from some of documents online and some college admissions counselors and what they say is used for effective essays. Mrs. V is going to talk about some grammar and sentence structure suggestions. It's good to make your essay stronger. We're going to go over some common application and coalition application essay questions and topics that they use. So you can actually go ahead and start brainstorming those. And then we're going to look at some ideas in general to make your essays stronger. Today for this workshop, we have online, I'll start with Mrs. McQueen over on the right-hand side on the screen. Mrs. McQueen is our Director of College Success. Mrs. V, many of you know, she is our Future Center Director at EC Glass High School. And then I am Dr. Glover. I am the Director of Strategy and Programs, and I've also temporarily been the Future Center Director at Heritage High School. So the reason I want to help you all navigate college essay writing is I think there's some big differences between academic writing and college admission essay writing. And I used to be a high school teacher at Heritage High School. I was an assistant principal at Delmar Middle School. And in addition to my role at Beacon of Hope, I also am an adjunct professor at University of Lynchburg. And so I read essays constantly. And so some of these tips we're going to give you all are effective strategies that I see students need to work through all the time. And then stuff that I know that our admissions counselors are looking for, things that'll set you apart from other students. So first of all, the role of a college admissions essay is, first of all, to show what makes you unique. So of course you're going to be, they're going to be looking for some of your, proofreading and grammar and sentence structure to make sure you actually can write, because that stuff illustrates some of your critical thinking and also some of your attention to detail. But more than that, the college admissions essay is a way for you to showcase what is unique about you and stuff that may not be evident from your application. So you have like resume type things in your application, like your extracurricular activities, your GPA, your courses, but those don't show who you are as a full person. And so writing an essay, a narrative essay in particular, like the college admissions essay, is a way for you to showcase your personality and your experiences. The difference, there are a few main differences between an admissions essay and a research essay. And I titled it a research essay. I didn't want to say an English essay like you did in English class, because you actually write different types of essays in English class. But a lot of times when we think of essays, we think of a more formal academic style that's more structured and impersonal. And typically research essays are in third person. Admissions essays, in contrast to that, are very much a narrative format, which means it's more like you are writing in a journal. You still need to have some form of structure. You still need to have good grammar and punctuation. Those things don't change, but the flow of the essay changes in the sense that you are writing very reflectively on your experiences or whatever you're talking about, and you are writing from a first person tense. So you're talking about yourself and you're writing about your experiences and your feelings. So to write these college admissions essays, I want to give you all 9 tips. And these are in no particular order. They're not from most important to least important. They're not in order of which you should do them. These are just 9 tips, that I want you to think through about writing a college admissions essay. And the first one is be creative. So before you even get started, and we're going to work on this later in the session, before you even get started, you need to think about what makes you unique. And if you have a hard time thinking about what makes you unique, ask some people around you, ask your family members and ask your friends, because sometimes they are able to see what they think is unique about you more than you may be able to see about yourself. Um, Oftentimes, a lot of students think they have to focus on these big, grand things that happen to them in life. You can actually use everyday small things and just draw out details to tell an engaging story. The second tip is to be authentic. Um, I would not focus too much on trying to impress somebody else. The goal is to be honest, like to be real to who you are and not try to say what you think somebody else wants you to say. That will usually come across in an essay or in a conversation. And the goal is for them to get to know you, not for you to tell them what you think they want to know. So just write about what is important to you, what is passionate to you, and that will come through on the paper. And authenticity is typically easy to catch both in writing and in conversation. The third tip is to be reflective. Um, this essay in particular, you're not just relaying information. So you're not just telling a story, you're not just stating your opinion. You are actually reflecting on what you're talking about. You're showing some self-awareness. So how did this experience that you're talking about make you feel? What did you learn from it? And most importantly, how did it help you grow? Or what importance or significance does it have in your life? So you're showing the ability to be self-aware and reflect on the experience versus just telling what happened. Fourth tip I have is to be specific. If you get a prompt or a question from a college for an application, make sure you make sure you answer the question directly and then use examples to support your points. And I say this for all kinds of essays. One of the most common mistakes that I see for a lot of students in writing essays is making claims, making arguments, stating opinions, but then providing no examples to support those comments. So make sure you're using examples. You can use anecdotes, you can use stories. Just make sure you're illustrating what you're saying. Be passionate about what you're writing about is the fifth tip. Your essay should reflect something that you're passionate about, or at least you can be passionate writing about, because that passion comes through. And a lot of colleges are actually looking for passion, because if you are passionate about something, then it's a motivating factor or a driving force for your education and for how you engage life. So in addition to critical thinking, if you have a love of learning, for instance, that will come through in an essay. And whatever you're passionate about, whatever topic, that's going to be something you carry through your college years and can actually help motivate you. The next tip I have is to be prepared. Go online. I would look and try to read some success stories or some successful essays. Sometimes you can find these on different websites where people will post actually admissions essays that they did, or some organizations will actually post some that have been good ones that they reviewed. You can also use your family or friends that have gotten into certain colleges or universities you're interested in. Look at the essays that they wrote, get ideas from them. More importantly than getting like specific ideas for what to write about is just to see how they wrote it. How did they structure their essay? How did they engage with their stories or with their points? And then you can also look for other tips on writing your essays in addition to the ones that we're giving you on this workshop. The last three tips I have are, first of all, be original. So colleges read a lot of essays. If you think about a normal, even mid-sized university is going to receive thousands of applications for their incoming freshman class. If you go to a larger university like Virginia Tech, George Mason, VCU, they are reading thousands upon thousands of essays. So try to think about topics that will set you apart and will stand out in the minds of your admissions officers. Some suggestions we say to try to avoid in general: a lot of students talk about sports and travel, which are not bad topics, because sports can absolutely have an impact on your life, and so can travel. The problem is when everybody else is writing about sports or travel, it does not set you apart from those other students. It's not memorable. The eighth tip is to be efficient. Look for, if you're applying to multiple colleges, or even if you're going to apply for scholarships, try to see if you can pick an essay topic or if you can structure your essay in a way that can be used for multiple different applications. That is a way you don't have to write a single essay for every different application, but you might be able to submit the same essay for multiple ones. That will save you time in the long run. And it will ultimately help you save some energy for your senior year too. And then the last thing, and I will emphasize this multiple times, be thorough. Proofread and then proofread your college admissions essay again. Get someone else to review it and give you feedback, because nobody, not your teachers, not your professors, not your college admissions officers, nobody wants to read an essay that has mistakes all over it, because it shows, one, it's harder to read, but it also shows that you have not put in the effort or the care to make sure you're submitting your best quality work. And that's evidence of motivation, and it's also evidence of how much something matters to you. So these are tips that I came up with that I think make your admissions essay more strong or stronger. But there's also some other things structurally that you need to include as well. And Mrs. V is going to go over some of those tips.
All right. Hello, everyone. Glad that you're here joining us today. If you have any questions that come up, you can go ahead and chat those into the chat feature, and we'll answer those as you have them for us. And so in your writing, it's important that every word counts and matters. A lot of essays have a word count for you to stay in between or not to exceed. And so it's important that each word is taking you towards your goal and not just in this middle ground of, you know, something that a reader might want to skim over. So we want to grab their attention and use our best word choice and conciseness and active tense while we're writing our essays. All right, do I have control? Okay, there we go. So I just wanted to outline for you kind of the difference between active voice and passive voice. You may have learned this already in your English classes, but just a reminder that the active voice is going to capture people's attention a little more than a passive voice. So the main two differences is that in an active voice, the subject is going to be a person instead of a thing. And then also with your verb usage, instead of having was, failed, or any kind of linking verb like am, is, are, was, were in front of the verb, just go right for the verb, and it's more of an active tense. So in this example, over a third of my classmates failed. Failed is the active verb. In the passive, the was failed, it just slows down the pace of the sentence. And so when you can make your sentences in active voice, that can definitely benefit and make your essay smoother to read. And then just another way to incorporate adjectives in your sentences can make your words jump off the paper at the reader and become alive, so that they are getting a sense of not only your personality, but the setting. You're kind of setting the stage for what you are sharing with the readers. All right, so now we're going to jump into some of the examples from the Common App and the Coalition essay. So the Common App essays for class of 2021, which it's my understanding that everyone here is juniors, those essays have been released. And so that's something you can definitely start on now. The Coalition application essays have not been updated yet, but they will soon. So we're going to just look at Virginia Tech's off the Coalition from last year. And as those update for juniors, you would get a notification if you already have made your profile there. So for the Common App, there's a section for writing. And when you get in there, you can find out if the schools that are on your Common App require or recommend these essays, so that you don't have to write an essay and then realize that it wasn't required until the very end. So while you're working through this process, it's really important to do your research on the front end so that you're not making extra work for yourself if it's not required in the process. Something is recommended, though, we want to encourage you to do that, because colleges look at recommended equaling required. It kind of gives you some bonus points on your application that shows you're going above and beyond. So these topic areas are the themes from the Common App essays. I just kind of summarized each of the questions. There are 7 prompts, and the last one is a prompt of your choice. So if there is a question on there that you're really not, you don't feel gravitated towards writing a whole essay about any of those topics, you can come up with your own topic. And so there's a lot of opportunity and creativity in the Common App essays for you to really let your personality and your passions shine through them. All right, so if you have your phone with you right now, you can go ahead and take a picture of the QR code, and it will pull up the full length Common App prompts or the Virginia Tech UPROSM profile prompts from last year. So the Virginia Tech prompts are different than the Common App prompts in that they have 4 questions and they're each for 120 words or less. So those words matter on those. You don't have a single word to not make count in those essays. The Common App prompts are typically 250 to 650 words, so you have more time to tell your story. And also on the Common App, you might have a supplement section where you get to write an extra essay that goes specifically to that school. So as you're going through this process and research what you need to do, it's important to review your goals and revise those essays, and then get some help with your review process and revisions so that you have multiple eyes, maybe a teacher, a parent, a friend, family member. Of course, our Beacon of Hope staff and school counselors love to read essays and get to know you in that way. So we encourage you to utilize all your resources to have multiple sets of eyes before you submit to the sets of eyes that are going to make your decision about your admissions that weigh on these essays. And then I guess another one of my tips was something that Dr. Glover had said also, is that you can recycle these essays. So make sure you have a system for saving and keeping records of your essays. I recommend not typing the essay directly into the prompt box, but starting in a Google Doc or Microsoft Word or wherever you type things, and then upload the completed copy or just copy and paste so that you keep your record in an easy to access place and not just directly in that application that goes off once you submit send. All right, yes. So I see a question. I'm going to go ahead and read it and answer it. When I got into my Common App account, it said that it was directing me for applications for this year and not next year. So I wasn't sure if the essay prompts I saw were for this year or last year. So that's a super question. So the essay prompts are for this year, but the application for you to submit will not become live until August 1st. So you can, and it will roll over whatever you put in there. So that means that on the application part of the Common App, where it says the deadlines, those are going to roll over for your class of 2021, starting on August 1st. So I can see how that would, it kind of gives a little bit 2 different messages, but everything you do on the Common App right now will save, and it will roll over to an active 2020-2021 school year in August. All right, if there's any other questions, go ahead and keep those coming our way.
So right now, I don't see any other questions in the chat.
All right.
You said you have some or you don't have some?
Don't.
Okay. So what we can do is we can go to our brainstorming questions and have a little discussion about these. And I'm not sure, we want to have a discussion through chat or through audio.
Should we unmute everybody?
Yep.
I had a few more tips of things, topics to maybe try to avoid before we go into brainstorming.
Okay.
Oops, everybody's unmuted. But in addition to like sports and travel, discussing politics in an essay can be considered controversial. Humor, if you're a funny person, you can definitely try to incorporate your true humor into your essay, but humor is not always interpreted the same way by the reader. So you just want to be cautious and make sure that it's a tasteful way to use humor, and that it's true to who your personality would be, if that is something that you would write. And then of course, you don't want to include any illegal activities or behavior in any kind of an essay. That wouldn't highlight your strengths at all. And your essay isn't the place to regurgitate your resume or your accomplishments. There's a whole different section in the application for that. So we definitely want our essays to be used to highlight something you can't find anywhere else in the application process. So it's just a pretty holistic way, which means that our colleges and universities are looking at who you are, not just on paper, not through your grades and test scores, but who you are as a person. This is really where they want to read and get to know you. And a lot of the admission counselors we work with really love this part of it. So, you know, you don't have to hold back and worry about, using the narrative format. It's exactly what it's designed for, and it might feel awkward if you're definitely used to using the research format that you are accustomed to using at a school. And we're here to help with the process. And this is one of my favorite things to do. So I love being part of the writing process and exploring what is next for everyone. So.
Mrs. V, do you think it would be appropriate for a student if they had something in their college application for the essay for them to then expand on something particular? Like maybe they had something that was briefly mentioned in the application, but they want to talk about it more because of the impact it had?
Definitely, there's a perfect spot for that. And sometimes there's a whole section on an application for that, where we'll say, is there any extra information where you can just write about it? It doesn't have to be a formal essay or anything. But if there's not, then you can use that in your essay section so that they get to read everything that you would want them to know about you as they review your profile.
Good.
And I can add one more thing.
Go ahead.
What Ms. V said. Well, actually, two things. The first is, for you all to recognize that this is a human experience. So it's a human that's reading your application, somebody who can be drawn to the words that you use. And it's not a computer who's just scanning for grammar and other not areas, errors. So, keep that in mind just as you're writing, that someone else is going to read it. And a lot of times it's more than just one person who's reading that essay in the admissions process. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just, it gives a visual to exactly what Ms. V just said. So in the admissions process, it's a holistic experience. So they're looking at everything that you bring to the table. So if you're looking at your skeleton, your bones, those are your grades, your GPA, some of the things that you've been involved in, that's your skeleton. And then your essay adds flesh to those numbers. It makes you a human being as well. So just make sure that you utilize this opportunity to express who you are beyond just what your grades might say about you, or just beyond what your activities say about you. So you get this opportunity through your essay to just add some more to the story.
Good. So we have a few brainstorming questions right here, and these by no means are the only questions that you could use to brainstorm for your admissions essay. As you saw, Mrs. V actually included some other topics or prompts from the common application. But we want you all to think through and actually give us some feedback. I know it's probably, some of you are going to just want to stay muted and not say anything, which is okay too, I guess. But we want you all to give us some feedback and think through at least these three questions, because they can be helpful in at least getting the thought process started for something you can write about to showcase your experiences, your personality, your perspectives. The first question is, what are the most meaningful events in your life? So you can think back through all the way from when you were a child to anything present day. What events were the most meaningful? Why were they meaningful to you? What impact do they have? Remember, your goal is to be reflective in conveying why this was a meaningful event, and how it changed you, how it helped you grow. What does it say about you as a person? Second question is, what do you love and why? So we love all kinds of things, from people to objects to events to experiences. This question is so broad, but it is intended to evoke some sort of passion that you can describe, because if you love something, you should be able to write about it passionately and with some detail. So think through anything that you love and what makes you love that thing, that person, that event, whatever. What makes you love it? And then what has it added to your life? How has it helped you change or grow? And then the third question is, what everyday details can you use to tell a story? So one of the things I mentioned earlier is a lot of people feel like they have to talk about some big life-changing event, or some grand gesture or some huge experience. If you want to be creative and unique and maybe stand out, pick something even small from an event that happened in your life or even from your everyday life, and then draw out all the details in that event. And then you can use those small details to tell a story. So does anybody have any feedback or any questions about these three brainstorming topics? I'm not surprised nobody's saying anything yet. If you all have any questions too, before we have about 4 or 5 minutes left, before we need to close this up. If you have any questions or feedback, make sure you still write them in the chat bar too, so we can answer those.
Wonderful. Can I add something a little bit
Yes.
off topic? So
Mhm.
I'm going to tease our next couple of workshops we have for you guys next week, our SAT and ACT basics. And if you have been noticing, the ACT is going to be offered in June, even though the SAT has been canceled. So we're going to definitely give you the information you will need to know or want to know about that next week, as well as the scholarship tips and tricks. So how you can get started on your scholarship search and use the time that you have now to really go into senior year with a lot of confidence and preparation to be able to really focus on your other things that you want to give your time and energy to and get some of these things off your plate. All right, I see a question. Do we need a Common App account? So yes, if you are going to apply to a school that's on the Common App, you will go ahead and make a Common App username and password, and that will guide you into the whole application. If you would like to set up a separate time with me to go over that, I can go on a Zoom call with you and show you all of the features and that sort of thing. We had a workshop a few weeks ago that was recorded as well that you could refer back to if you want more detailed information than what I'm giving you right now.
I have two questions that come
Sure.
from that. But Heidi, do you want to tell them about the reviewer button
Yes,
coming up?
on the Common App. So there is a feature on the Common application where you can select someone to be your recommender. So they would write a letter of recommendation for you, or you can select someone to be an advisor. And that person gets a view-only access to your application and can offer you feedback on your exact formatting and all of the inputs that you've put into your application before you send it off. So that can be a neat way for us to interact with you all through your existing application. And you could add a parent on there, a teacher, a school counselor will be a recommender typically. And so they'll have a view-only access and ability to upload your other supplemental documents from the counseling department. And so the more you familiarize yourself with the features in whichever application platform you're using, whether it's Common App or Coalition, or it could be a completely independent application just on that school's website, you'll have it more ease when you're completing it and finally submitting.
Okay,
All
here.
right.
Will there be a way for us to access these slides after the meeting? The answer to that question is yes, and we can send you the slides as well as the video that we are recording presently. So you will continue to have access. The next one, I will let either of you answer this. It says, would the birth of a sibling be a meaningful event? Can I use that in an application?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I think, and even it's how you write about it. So it's not necessarily the event that could make or break your essay topic. You could use one of them that we kind of said you might not want to start with and make it a great essay. So, essay writing is more subjective than you would think. And so whatever is meaningful to you and is authentic is definitely something I would start with. And then through the editing and revision process, if you go a different direction, then that could be something you explore later on. But whatever your gut instinct tells you right now is where I would start. That'd be my starting point, and see if that ends up being your finishing point or if it's just a part of the journey in this writing process for you.
Good. And I would add that, yeah, of course, absolutely, you can write about the birth of a sibling. And I would just encourage you to make sure you look at some of the tips we talked about earlier. So making sure you're reflective on that experience. What did that experience mean to you, and drawing that out in some details and using specifics. It's not enough to say the birth of your sibling was impactful to you. You need to describe how and why, and try to tell that in a way that engages somebody through the use of stories and reflection and experiences.
That was very well said, Dr. Glover.
Thank you.
That's it for the questions on my end.
Cool.
All right.
All right, so if we have no further questions, we are at 1:30, and we like to honor everyone's time. We want to say thank you, first of all, for joining our workshop. We're glad we have students and other staff members, faculty members, parents that can join us. If you have any further questions at all, you can reach out to any one of us. Our emails are on our website, and they're actually pretty simple. It's just our first name and then beaconofhopelynchburg.org is the tag. And then Ms. McQueen will send out the video and the slides later. And once again, if you also have specific essay questions or you want somebody to review your essay, we're also here as well. So you can feel free to send it to any of us and we will review essays. And I would just add that that process is designed to help you grow. So if you get a lot of feedback, please don't take it personally. The goal is just to help you grow and make it the best possible essay you can submit.